Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 201. So this episode adapted part of chapter 35 of the manga. 35 is obviously a very hyped up chapter. It's an excellent chapter. A lot of major reveals happen. But the way that they chose to adapt it here was to actually only give you a tease of the Sasuke part of the chapter in this episode, and that they are actually going to continue and adapt that stuff in the coming episodes while they also do this anime original Boro cult arc, which they did set up obviously a few episodes ago and continue to set up here. So that's very interesting in terms of the way they structured it. I was convinced that the way they were going to do it was that they do 35 here, like adapt chapter 35 in this episode, and then just go straight into that. But actually, this works out potentially a little bit better in terms of, a lot of people are very aware with the anime that, at times it can go into anime original arcs and some people don't like them. Well, here's a way where they're forcing you to watch some of these anime original arcs, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on this major reveal in the story. Now, I think you already know the direction they're heading in, because Boro at the end, once again, not only mentions Infinite Tsukiyomi, but he mentions Otsutsuki as well. And you're already leaning in that direction after the Momoshiki connection made a few episodes ago. So Sasuke arriving in that different dimension, following the coordinates from the vessel data that Konohamaru brought back, it's Otsutsuki related, of course, because outside of like Sasuke, who can really use space-time kind of transfer ninjutsu? Well, I guess Otsutsuki is the obvious kind of answer to that. So that's a very, very interesting reveal in terms of how they chose to do it. And it's very interesting because I would love to know if any anime-only people were able to sort of figure out what basically gets explained immediately after this in the chapter. So if you read this chapter, you're not left on a cliffhanger with months wondering what those markings in that place are on the wall. You're told immediately afterwards. So they cut away from the Sasuke side of the episode right as he was literally about to go up and get the answer to what they are. So I'd love to know if anime originals figured out what the situation is there. But either way, it looks like, based on the preview, we're going to see this immediately pretty much next week. So that's good. They're not leaving us hanging too long, and it actually works as a nice sort of cliffhanger to be like, okay, they're finally going to reveal some big stuff. I absolutely have to tune in next week. That's pretty good. And, a little bit disappointing that, they've been pretty good at adapting nearly full chapters in every episode for the last while. And this is the first one where they really left about half of a chapter out and focused on like all of the non-Sasuke scenes. But either way, that out of the way. What they did here to sort of fill in the time, because again, other chapters have done basically a situation where it's adapted the full chapter and still needed to fill in extra scenes. This episode then needed to do even more of that. Now, the way they accomplished this was, I think, by really heavily extending out the Kawaki talking to Kurama scene. Now, again, it's a lengthy enough scene in the manga, but they definitely added in like a few extra kind of back and forths between them here. Kurama mentioned much more details about Naruto's past, sort of implied stuff from the manga. Like the manga doesn't have time to do a whole chapter of Kawaki talking to Naruto, so it sort of very much skims through his life to catch Kawaki up on the details of Naruto he's not familiar with. In the anime, they have a little bit more time where they can sort of flashback, show you a little bit of this. Kawaki can recap a lot of the situation. Kurama can recap a lot of the situation of what happened, about why Naruto has a tail beast inside him, what happened to Naruto's parents. But the most significant thing here, that is another thing that furthers how similar Naruto and Kawaki are, why Naruto is sort of focusing so much on Kawaki, and why Kawaki is sort of opening up to Naruto, is the vessel connection. That initially, at the start, when Kawaki sees Kurama, he just thinks like, oh, this makes sense. This is Naruto's power source. He has a weapon inside him. This helps to explain a lot about, how powerful he is. But Kurama comes out and is just like, no, actually, you've got it all wrong there. Like, sure, he now is able to use me, and we work together as like the source of Naruto's like high-end power. But it wasn't always like that. Initially, he was just treated as the vessel, keyword, of the nine-tailed fox. In the same way that Kawaki is just a vessel for the karma mark. And that connection alone, that word and how similar the idea of a Jinchuriki is to what a karma mark is. Now, obviously, I'm saying that from the perspective of I know exactly what the karma mark is because I've read the manga. Anime-only people don't know exactly yet what the kind of situation is, but you maybe have a hint as to what it's about because of the Momoshiki mention a few episodes ago. But still, there's a significance to that and the idea of like why he is called the vessel and why Kara want him so much, specifically Jigen, why Jigen is so eager to make sure Kawaki succeeds as the vessel. And they also, with the little flashback scene to Jigen here, get across the idea that, Kawaki has this, but his life, like he really is just viewed as someone who is holding on to this power, and his individual person doesn't matter. The vessel is like for someone else. So that's a very interesting kind of a reveal there. We do then cut to some Kawaki training, so we get to see him walking up the walls using the sort of a chakra walking on walls sort of technique. He walks up a tree, establishing that again. He's actually adapting to it pretty well. He's got good chakra control, and Naruto is frustrated that a lot of the young shinobi he's helping to train here are so immediately talented, unlike him, where it was like episodes before he could actually learn to walk up the wall. And, it's coming so easy to even Kawaki, who's only just learned about chakra and that he can control it. They did change a little bit here in that Sarada is watching Kawaki train. In the anime, it's with Mitsuki, and she has a little bit of a conversation with Mitsuki about how she understands his situation, but kind of wishes, in a way, there's a little bit of jealousy there. She wishes she was being trained by Lord Seventh, but he's getting the training and so on. And we get the whole idea of, Lord Seventh thinks of everyone as his family. In the manga, this scene is actually Sarada talking to Chocho. Now, I suppose this all depends on, like, okay, is that the right way to do it or not? Ultimately, what they're trying to do here is establish more of Sarada's connection with Kawaki, Mitsuki's connection with Kawaki, because of the sort of direction that they're heading in, of like, these are the people closest to Kawaki, his new team in a way. It's more important to establish connections like that, so I don't mind too much them changing it from Chocho to Mitsuki, because Mitsuki sort of commenting in or around Kawaki, I think, means a little bit more than Chocho doing the same thing. So there's that. Then we sort of transition that into the idea of, Kawaki has a little bit of a flashback. Boruto kind of comes back and it's just like, we're gonna finally like work together. He kind of just comes out and like really honestly is just like, I've come to sort of appreciate you, see you as someone important to me as well. And the big moment is the isn't that right sort of brother, whatever way you want to do the translation. The manga says bro. They say brother here. I think it is meant to be more of a kind of bro necessarily, rather than like immediately at this point Boruto straight away sort of considers him like full on family. But again, that's just the specific nature of the terms, I suppose, here. Which way do you go with it? Because it fits Boruto saying something like bro, but I guess maybe in the anime subtitle translation, it's maybe hard to get that across particularly well. But it's a really good scene of just the kind of fist bump into the chest situation, and Kawaki actually gets a little bit inspired by this. He doesn't return the statement to Boruto, but agrees with the sentiment of like they're going to work together and make this happen. So, you know, just that further teamwork in this case of like, yeah, they're building up to something here. It's good development and just establishing that Boruto and Kawaki's connection is growing stronger and stronger as time goes on. You know, beyond that, the only real other scenes I suppose they had were they had a brief scene with Sarada mentioning her training with Sasuke, and Boruto again mentioning that, oh, like, if he's in the village, can you let me know that I'd like to train with him as well? And she's kind of like, oh, he's not here right now, but sure, you know, he is your master after all. But that she's aware that she needs to do her training. We then get a quick scene, but a nice scene, of Sarada actually doing her Chidori training. And I really like the way they did it, in that this could have been very repetitive because she doesn't have anyone with her to train with her. So it's just her on her own, and it could have just been the exact same scene as last time out, her attempting to Chidori against the waterfall. But I love the visual aspect that they added onto this, of like, she's trying to visualize what Sasuke said, of the idea that you have to use the Sharingan to analyze your opponent as you're approaching them, and sort of be aware of what their sort of counter strike is, so that when you execute your attack, it's like dodging their strike and saving yourself at the same time as you're finishing the fight. And she visualizes like her a kind of vision of herself coming in for an attack, which she dodges and executes the strike. That was really cool to get across. Like, yes, that's what Chidori is about. That's the whole reason for that complicated explanation about what the technique is. Now, she executes it reasonably well. She creates a little bit of a circle on the waterfall, but it's nowhere near as powerful as Sasuke's. Now, the question obviously is, should it be as powerful as Sasuke's? I'd probably say, like, not quite. But the magnitude is quite a bit different, and Sarada definitely feels it. For her to say she's actually able to use this technique, it has to be a bit better than that. So the question now is, where does Sarada go from here to improve? In that, can she do it all on her own, or is she going to need some more help? And this is where I think it would be really cool if she asked Kakashi to help. Again, I suppose he can't actually use Chidori anymore, but he would still know the mechanics of the technique because he had the Sharingan for so long, and is a good teacher of ninjutsu as well. So that could be a cool thing to do, and it would be a nice moment as well to have, she kind of almost like wishes she could be trained by Naruto, but he's kind of busy with Kawaki at the moment. So it would still be significant for her to be trained by the 6th Hokage, Kakashi. So I hope we get something like that, because I do feel there's probably a little bit of an extra step that's needed. Otherwise, it probably is just going to be a sort of like a case of her just trying it over and over again and eventually getting it. I'm struggling to remember the whole thing of like, if she got the 3rd Tomoe in her Sharingan, would that immediately solve the problem, and like when exactly does that happen or not? That would seem a bit weird. I don't think that's probably the way with this jutsu that you want it to go, that she basically solves the problem just with that, with the gain of an extra Tomoe. I do think she has to gain some sort of extra understanding of the technique in some way, and more or less have it, and then the Tomoe afterwards like adds on to that or something. To me, that's the better way to go with it. But we'll see what exact path they take with it, because it's a cool thing in that like this just happened randomly in the manga. It was revealed, oh, Sarada can use Chidori because she just used it there. But this is new, adding in how she actually went about learning it. And I think they've implemented it quite nicely into the story here. So I do definitely appreciate that. There was one other quick scene of Sai and Shikamaru talking, which was basically just to get across that Shikamaru is still very cautious about Kawaki. He still doesn't trust him. Sai kind of does, but is aware that also, yeah, I guess Naruto's being a little bit naive, and then he's the one who reveals that, oh yeah, we figured out these coordinates. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but I acted straight away, and I sent Sasuke out to investigate these coordinates, and Shikamaru agrees that was the right choice. And then that's when we get the cut over to the Sasuke scene, which again, to me, is probably going to be the most significant part of the episode. I really want to take a look at what the anime-only people are thinking about that scene. I haven't taken a look yet because I'm recording this like pretty much straight after watching the episode, so it's going to be interesting to see the reaction to that little bit of the episode, especially because when we got this in the chapter, we got this plus a whole extra section. It's interesting the way they're sort of blocking it out, where they're only giving us this little insight of like, he's here in this different dimension, markings on the wall, very interesting, and in general the location he's in seems kind of fascinating. But because it comes, where this information comes from, where this coordinate comes from, fascinating where they're going to go with this, because all of the reveals are about to come out here. This is the truth behind Kara and what they're about, what they're all seeking to accomplish. Like, we are about to learn effectively a lot about, who is Jigen, what is the karma mark really for and about, and how does it work? There's a lot of questions that are relatively quickly going to get answered by some of the reveals coming up quite shortly. So that's really, really cool. So yeah, an interesting episode. For the first time in a while, they've done something like very different with the way they went about adapting it, but I actually quite like it because it's going to add so much more onto this upcoming Boro arc, that we're getting more development on Boro, a character who was cool for the little bit, we focused on him in the manga, but we didn't know him that well. And some of the recent chapters have sort of told us a little bit extra about him, and it's like, oh cool, why didn't you go into that? That's what the anime is doing right now. It's about to go into that. And I am fascinated to see where they go, just because that Boro scene, he's obviously talking to his cult, basically, and he's getting people, like, interested in the infinite Tsukiyome as sort of the ideal kind of life, ideal future situation. And he's completely acting like the cult leader that you'd expect, of just making big statements. He knows the answer he's going to get from the audience, and it just accelerates him on to ask more questions, and he has them in the palm of his hand. So, the obvious question, can he activate the infinite Tsukiyome? What is the connection of that technique with what's going on here? Can he perform it, or what? Or is he just going to do something like it? I'm not really sure. But then, obviously, the real significant thing was that he mentions the Otsutsuki at the end. That, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, we will be ruled by the Otsutsuki, and people cheered. That's really interesting to me. So, I'm interested in this arc just because it's new content that we've never seen before, and it's going to be sort of, canon to the series, of course. It's not just a non-canon arc, it's new anime original content that matters, and it's going to have some of the most significant reveals from the manga continuing on from where we left off here. That's really, really good to me. That's good decision making. So I guess that means next week's episode is going to be the one with the major reveals, and again, excited to see what people feel about that major sort of world building lore reveal that kind of comes out. So, there are my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.